This conference will now be
Sorry,
recorded.
there's a really long delay on that when it starts.
Call to order the May meeting of the South Whitehall Township Environmental Advisory Council. So just so everybody's aware, Mark won't be here tonight. Derek should be here in a few minutes, and Sarah's online. So, all right, first order of business is hopefully everybody got a chance to review the April meeting minutes. And I would make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes as written. Somebody, Marie will second the motion. Okay. Next two items of interest are things we want to discuss around outreach. So activities where we're going out into the community and engaging with some other entities. So first is we had a couple activities this past month. The Lehigh County Envirothon was the first one. So Chris and I were there on Wednesday, and Emily, you and Chris were there on the Friday, right? So anybody want to offer some thoughts on how they thought things went?
What'd you think?
Basically, I just served lunch, so I didn't really do much other than just hang around and observe. I mean, it was a pretty impressive event. Lots of hands-on activities for the kids. So I thought, Covered Bridge Park was a great place for it because they could, had a lot of space to spread out. It was, I guess when I was there, it was the high school students,
Correct.
right? So
Yeah.
it seemed like it was very well attended. It was a long lunch line, so
Yeah.
lots of people there. It seemed like a lot of community environmental organizations were involved as well. So it seemed like a great event.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of organizations who will do administer the tests themselves, who are kind of like the standard ones, but then kind of like you, a lot of other people will just volunteer and help out and just have a presence there. Like I think Master Watershed Stewards and other like EAC folks and
Emily and Buster, sure.
Yeah, very impressive event. And what I took from it is that there are a lot of entities around here, not necessarily that we need a lot. I mean, there are a lot of entities that have a lot of information and could support us to the extent that we want to partner, particularly the Penn State Master Gardeners, who specifically have issues getting enough volunteer hours for all of their Master Gardeners. Like if we have a thing we want to do, it sounds like it's very open in terms of all the things that they could provide. Staffing, all kinds of things, educating things, and that they're in desperate need of people to need them. So
to maintain your certification,
yes, because they have a huge cohort that need many
for
hours
the initial.
Yeah.
When you sign up to be a Master Gardener,
In
you
that
have
first
a
year,
huge amount.
You have over 100 or something hours, and then every subsequent year you need 50. So that's a ton of hours that they need just in the area to be needed. And so people are traveling out to Harrisburg and stuff to get their hours. And so anyway,
do we have any idea how many of those folks live in South Whitehall Township?
We met one,
and it sounds
yeah,
like
yeah,
yes,
right.
but it sounds like, who was I talking with? Someone said it was substantial. And in any case, the headquarters is right by Dorney Park, and he basically, the person we met was like, talk to the
Joe.
there.
I forget his last name. Joe. I've talked to him before. Is like the head of the Master Gardener program for like Lehigh County. So whenever they pull in volunteer efforts, he'll pull in all the local people and whoever can help with that. So I think we said we'll start with him.
Yeah, I was like, once we know what we want or not, I mean, it could go a lot of ways, because I think we could talk with him and say, what do you offer? Because it sounds like it's a huge array of stuff. or we could say this is what we're looking for. But it's anyway, I was really excited to hear, okay, once we kind of know more what we're doing or are looking for a new opportunity, that's ready. You know, they're ready and eager.
Yeah, I
But
found it.
they have people who could present on topics?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna
Absolutely.
say. I found it interesting. I forget the gentleman's name who we sat with.
Yeah.
But like for him going through the accreditation process or whatever it is now and living in South Whitehall, even for him to come speak to us for, half hour or an hour or something about whatever his air, like he had things that were his specific interest to like why he wanted to be a master gardener. And he could talk about that. That would satisfy his hours and also give us a cool topic to think about.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
but it could be so many things. Yeah.
Like we wanted to set up some kind of a
Yes.
seminar with the library or something,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Those people is-
On a
Okay, great.
monthly basis. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of from where we are now, it'll feel like an unlimited resource. It sounds like. So, yeah, that's great. We'd have to figure out what the next steps are, but that's there. And I think,
Okay.
yeah.
I can reach out to Joe. I have his contact and at
Okay.
least kind of touch base unless, we want to go through with some of the like follow up and if someone else wants to do that, but I'm happy to. I've talked to him before, just to get a sense of who are some of the locals that may be in our area for volunteer projects. But if
Yeah.
we want to
Why
have
don't
a
we- why don't
meeting,
we
right?
see if we can get him to a future meeting and then we can just do a brainstorm about how we can work together.
That sounds
I
great.
love that. Yeah.
Wonder if there's an opportunity to do, like, if they have summer kids programs or anything, to have like a recurring weekly kids program or something that we could set up.
So let's ask, let's come here, we can ask him, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty heavy with kids' programs.
Mhm.
I don't know if they-
The library,
Yeah,
you're talking about?
yeah. They've got a lot of stuff going on. So I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if the library hasn't already had them come
That's
in
what
to
I
do
think.
something, but
Yeah. It sounds like they have some, but the library, it also sounds like, not unlike us, has a limited capacity to plan
Mhm.
programs.
Yeah.
And so, like, they had them come in once last year, right? And loved it and thought it was great and would do it again. But, how much space do they have? Who's
Yeah.
going to plan it? All that kind of stuff. So they're running into that same thing. If we came up with something, it still would be valuable.
yeah, so I can reach out to Joe and ask him to come to a future
Yeah,
meeting
that'd be great.
and just
Yeah.
present and give us a sense of what they're
Yeah.
looking for or what their volunteers might be looking for.
I think it's great that you guys were impressed with the environment. It's very encouraging to me.
It's
that
super,
it's
super
still-
cool. It's really intense.
Still
Yeah.
so
great.
good. Still
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had more of a chance to kind of walk around a little bit. Frank was busy with lunch and I had to skedaddle, go buy buns and stuff. And so, but I don't know if Frank, I know you had talked to some folks from the Lehigh County Conservation District as well. I don't know if there's any follow-up there. That's I always think that there's a good opportunity for the Conservation District to promote the like positive or the more proactive things that they're doing. Oftentimes the Conservation District gets this like they're just the regulatory, which is absolutely a big piece of that. So I don't know if it'd be of interest based on you guys' experience talking to them for them to come talk to the EAC and kind of share like this is what they do as far as with their watershed program, with things like Envirothon, they do other environmental education, if that would be of interest.
Yeah, I did talk to two of the people there about engaging with the EAC network. So that would, but they seemed interested in maybe doing that. We gave them a name to follow up with. So, that might be a way to get more bang for the buck if they're talking to representatives
Yeah.
of a bunch of EACs. But
Hey,
they're,
What is it? Okay.
and just thank you both for spending time out there. That was really great for me to kind of show off the EAC. As like the host municipality, I like having it here. I think it's a great space. I've been involved with it at other spaces before. And yeah, I'd love to continue having it here. And if you guys think it's something that next year we might want to have more of like a specific presence at, like they do lunchtime presentations after the kids eat. I forget how, I think middle school they went back.
Yes.
High school, I think they were finished.
Yeah.
So either one, I think they do something afterwards. Like we've had the K9 unit go down before. I don't know what they did this time, but if we wanted to think about a presentation, or they always have a current events session. And I think this year, one of the volunteers kind of came up with the current event topic. So it might be something for us to think about as well.
Yeah, I
Or
think-
even if we aren't presenting, we could help organize it.
Yeah.
I think that we'll get into that with the next agenda item, because I think there's an opportunity for us to be more planful in terms of how we engage with these other organizations, because, we've had some opportunities, they've all been reactive. Like, this is already planned, do you want to be part of this? And so I think if we structure engagement properly, we can get involved earlier, be, collaborators in what our contribution will be, as opposed to just, jumping in at the last minute. So I think there's some real opportunity there. Next item is, Chris and I were at the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission activity this afternoon. Their regional plan, they had what they call a strategy lab around the environmental aspects of the plan. Chris, maybe I'll let you talk about it, because I didn't find it terribly useful.
Yeah. So similar to the township, our comprehensive plan was adopted in 2023. Each county has to adopt their own comprehensive plan. LVPC is the bi-county, both Lehigh and Northampton planning agency. So every couple of years they update the regional comprehensive plan. They also, LVPC through the Lehigh Valley Transportation Study, serves as the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So they also fund and plan for all the transportation infrastructure. So what they've done the past couple of updates to the county comprehensive plan, and what they're federally obligated to do for the long range transportation plan, is they put them together, which makes sense, which is great. Land use and transportation planning all together. So they have kind of this deadline that they need to update their transportation plan by next year. I think it needs to be adopted. It's also around the time that the county comprehensive plan should be adopted. So it does feel a little rushed. They had a series of strategy labs, as they're calling them, which are kind of like 2-hour workshops around specific general topics of the county comprehensive plan. There were a couple on land use. I think tomorrow is utility related. Today was environment. And through these strategy labs, they're really kind of asking high level questions about what are important aspects of these topics. They gave us a couple of prompted like micro subcategories of like natural resources, climate resiliency, farmland preservation, and kind of lost the other one.
Woodlands. Right.
Yeah, woodlands was kind of in natural resources. So it was not a lot of time to really discuss. These are pretty.
Parks and trails.
Oh, parks and trails. Yeah. Yeah. And they also had that in a session the other day, is parks and trails related to arts and culture. So it's open to community members. It's open to whomever. I feel like we didn't have a lot of time to dig into the weeds, but they're also not really looking for that at this stage. It's really more high level. And I think it was nice for us to be there. I think if it's a good opportunity, if you have like a burning, more regional issue that you want to be addressed, so that at least gets some recognition in the plan. That's what these strategy labs are good for. You won't have time to get into specifics.
Yeah, we're only given 10 minutes to discuss a topic and come up with some ideas around it. And, it's clear some people came in with
Agendas.
that didn't necessarily match the topic we were supposed to be discussing. So I didn't find that the 10-minute sessions surfaced anything really substantial that hadn't already been considered.
Yeah,
On the plan, I mean, they went over some of a little bit of the background of what's in the plan, and it's a massive undertaking. It's a very comprehensive document, and they've done tremendous work on it. So, I mean, I'm not being critical of the plan itself, but I just think the way these labs, these strategy labs were structured, it really wasn't, I think.
I will
very
say,
helpful to
and
them.
I think I shared with you, this was the worst one that I went to yet. Some of the other ones I think were actually pretty good, but I think partly it's the topic. It's a really broad topic. There's a lot of different areas of interest that people are really passionate about. And the amount of planning that LVPC has done on some of those subtopics with like the priority climate action plan associated with the greenhouse gas inventory, they're going through the Act 167 stormwater management plan. They're doing a lot of environmental planning right now that is digging more into the weeds. So that's, I think, a little relief that they have the ability to cover more topics specifically in those subcategory plans. Whereas there's other aspects of the regional plan that it needs a little bit more emphasis. And I'll say like the arts and culture one. What I found through that last week was there's so much that needs to happen like regionally around like arts and culture collaboration. And through this comprehensive plan, through LVPC, like as a community gatherer, I think is a terrific opportunity for like that community to come together more. Whereas on the environmental side, it's kind of like we're never gonna in 10 minutes have a good conversation about anything.
Yeah, I personally thought it should have been facilitated, and they should have had specific topics that they wanted people to focus on, and it probably would have been a little deeper, maybe on fewer topics, and maybe that would have been a little bit better. But they took all the notes, and we'll see if
Yeah.
they can, do anything with them. But I agree with Chris. I mean, it's good for us to participate in these sort of things. And people at LVPC get to know who we are, then that's a good thing too, right? So
Yeah, I thought there'd be a lot more people there today.
Yeah.
That was the smallest crowd, and
24, I think.
Yeah. I really expected a lot more. But so
Okay, well, that's that. Next agenda item, we had a lot of discussion last time around outreach activities, things we could be doing. We got another one that Brian's going to bring up later. That's a good idea. That we'll need some follow up. So as I expressed at the last meeting, my concern is that we generate a lot of good ideas and then don't do anything with them, right? And so we're a small group, we're volunteers, limited resources. So I think it's important that we prioritize and focus, right? If we're going to actually get things done. And with that in mind, I sent an email to everybody. Nobody responded, so I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But I thought it might be helpful to kind of establish some roles within the group, which are basically just sort of single points of contact with certain key collaborators, the library, the school district. So groups, organizations that we know we want to work with, and then have somebody on our team who will just take the initiative every couple of months to follow up with whoever our contact is in those organizations, and just kind of, keep the ball rolling, bring ideas back to this group. I'm not asking that whoever that person is does all the work. I mean, obviously we'll share the work and organizing things, whatever. But I just think that would be a lot more efficient than, having somebody talk to the school district and then come back and say, here's what we learned and what do we want to do next, and kind of give individuals a little bit more authority to kind of take initiative and bring specific ideas back to this group that they have already vetted and have already discussed with the other party how this might work, so we have a more structured idea that we can then act on. So I just, what do people think about that?
Yes, that sounds good.
Any action? Okay, Sarah, we're not going to make your dog volunteer.
mascot.
Oh, okay.
Mascot,
Yeah.
That's great.
So with that in mind, I identified 4 organizations that we discussed, well, 3 organizations and one other activity. Obviously, we talked a lot about the library and the school district as partners. So, is there anybody who would want to volunteer to be the point of contact with either of those organizations?
I mean, I don't mind doing it.
So Sarah, how about you for the school district?
Sure.
Since you've already established some of those relationships.
And I'll say I'm available however anyone needs me for, like, if it's like, oh, I don't have, if you're kind of moving the needle and you need something, let me know for any of this.
And the same, I mean, anything that you need help on, bring back to the whole group. I mean, obviously, we're all gonna work on these things together, but,
Marie, do you want to be the point person for the library? I know you have.
Yeah,
relationships
that's what
there.
I've been thinking about. What would you do, Emily? What are you looking to be a part of?
Well, if we end up having a relationship with the Penn State Master Gardeners, I'm happy to be that person. I can be the person to reach out if you want Chris or, so, I mean, if we're doing
That's a
stuff
good
with the
idea.
library, I would be happy to then,
Yeah,
work with
coordinate.
you with that, yeah.
Coordinate.
okay, so the 2 of you will do it together. Is that what I'm hearing, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind, I know Mary Ann, I don't mind, and what you're saying is, like, we just did something, so maybe the middle of the summer, I contact Mary Ann.
I think the main thing is just keep a conversation.
Keep the
going,
conversation
right?
going.
And so that, and I put in the email, an idea of like, we do 2 things in the school year with the school district as a goal. We do like something once a quarter with the library as a goal, right?
I think the last meeting is a good example of, like, we talked about a great event potentially with the library of the reading the butterfly video with something more comprehensive. It was a great discussion,
Yeah.
but then it's like, well,
Who's gonna do
who?
something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so then you're thinking you'll be with the Master Gardeners, but that's also a tie-in with the library.
We could tie in, yeah, if you want, to me, if I were to do this, I would, and I don't know, if it's Mary Ann. I mean, we could ask Mary Ann for 15 minutes to sit down and hear what she is thinking about this,
Right.
like, and then, again, sort of tag on and add to. I don't know that I don't feel like I'm at the point where I can say, this is what we should do, but if we can partner with them and enhance what they're doing.
Yeah, honestly, if.
She had requests and, she had thoughts and stuff, so.
Yeah, I mean, if the partner organizations have ideas that fit within our charter,
Yeah,
that's fabulous, right? I
right,
mean,
yeah.
of course, we'll, if we don't have to come up with the ideas, even better, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think
They
is
just
the
need help planning and organizing it. We talked before, she's asking me about space here, so
Mhm.
I don't know what those rules are.
So I think that's a good example. Would the goal be like, did the event at the library, we got to follow up with Mary Ann, it led to something else. She might want to do something here. We don't need to wait for it to be an agenda item on every single meeting month to month for all of us to
Sure.
discuss it. It's kind of like you have the autonomy to go and talk to Mary Ann, get the ideas, and then if it's like, hey, is there spacing, you can reach out to me directly, and we can kind of get this stuff going. And then when we come and sit down, it's like, hey, here's the idea. Like, I talked to executive staff, you talk to library, we developed this idea, we come back to everybody and say, what do you guys think about doing an event around this time on this here? And everything is already kind of 80% there.
yeah, ideally, the person who's the contact comes back with a plan, not just an idea. right?
Yeah.
With this specific event, this time of year, with this group.
Do that.
Mhm.
Also,
So-
I'm at the library a lot with my kids.
Right,
anyway.
right, I know you are, but yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like,
I didn't know because I know it's like I had a conversation.
right, I had a conversation with Mary Ann already, but I think it's great that you have that contact, that we're there too, and that you can look at the gardening thing. So I think there's enough going on there for the 2 of us, so I don't mind
Okay.
reaching out to Mary Ann, and seeing what her thoughts are, but I do like your idea of maybe the 3 of us meet.
Yeah.
On occasion, we meet and say, okay, what do you think?
And it can be 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be.
Right,
a
well,
long meeting. It might end up being one.
It might be, it might be. Okay, all right, very, very good.
The other partnership I think is probably with Lynn.
Matula.
Matula
Mhm.
around, township events and how do we participate in those, again, in a more proactive way, where we can maybe structure some content that's relevant to the EAC and the environment, as opposed to just being in a pair of hands or,
Yeah, so on that, I would suggest like I'll bring Lynn to you guys because it's hard to get in contact with her through different parts of the year. Like she gets super busy at sometimes, and I think it'll be easier. And she's offered to do this. She said if there is a preferred time for her, like January, February, like whatever our meeting is, that would be a great time for her to come in and just plan with us as a group. And she has her list of events. So then when we're talking about like, hey, this is where we're going to be here for movies, here for this, here for that. Here's kind of where we're thinking as far as like date wise for Earth Day. And we can start to plan that and we can adjust that from there. But I think that might be easier than someone trying to like, oh, I'll connect with Lynn individually.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
good idea.
That's okay.
So what will that one be? That's events.
Yeah.
So I guess I can say like I'll take point on that and bring Lynn. Is that, do you think like February or like usually January we just have the reorg and maybe the annual report? So maybe like the February meeting, like we'll
Yeah.
schedule.
That will give us.
I'm a little worried it might be late for Earth Day stuff. If we're
It will be
really trying
late.
to think that one through. So
Yeah.
maybe we think it through beforehand.
Yes. I
And
think
then we should
it'll,
have someone who's in charge of that thinking it through in the EAC, not you, right?
so
But yeah,
yeah, actually that's great. Like I guess what I can do is I can make sure that Lynn knows when she's coming to us, what we're talking about. But if someone does want to take point on like what are we doing for events, more
Yeah.
like anything, she's gonna be more interested in like what's the plan? What does the EAC want to do?
Right,
And
yeah.
can she fit that? Like she's not gonna help us plan it, but
Right,
she
yeah,
needs to do
yeah,
everything
yeah.
else. So if it's like, hey, for Earth Day, we're gonna do this, like we'd like to do this
right,
theme.
like if there's anything that we want planned with her, I think February's too late.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like if we wanted to, or it's too late to say, Lynn, what's your plan? Right, if we have.
Yeah,
right,
I
like-
think she was thinking more like the specific events that she has that we might want to do an
Be
education
part of it,
program
for
at.
sure.
Earth Day might be a whole
That's-
nother animal.
yeah.
So we can
Yeah.
definitely try to prioritize Earth Day.
But it sounds like, we probably have an open invitation for any township event that we want to participate in.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so her goal is like she has 12 things scheduled throughout the year. Do you guys want to be there for any of it? And what do you want to do there? And she's only worried about trying to get those things scheduled and her logistics of it. So it's
Can you get the
So-
schedule out to us? I mean, I'm sure it's on the website, but whatever, like there's.
that would be the
thing-
January, February.
Yeah.
Like, she'll know
Even
it
now
then.
for this year, I don't know.
I think
that-
if we can meet.
I don't want to wait
Sorry.
27.
Yeah.
Is there something we can participate in?
Why don't we do
You
this?
know.
Why don't we take like the September or October meeting and brainstorm what we want to do in terms of township education events, right? And then January, February, we bring Lynn in and figure out, here are 4 things we want to do and see where they fit.
That's
And what months did you say, Frank?
September.
September, October, we'll spend, we'll make that an agenda item where we'll actually sit down as a group and decide, what are the 4 educational activities we want to do for township residents next year.
Chris, are you able to put that into like the September
Mhm.
agenda? Okay. 'Cause
Yeah,
otherwise
that's,
there's lots of,
I'm
Sarah's
flagging
got
it.
that
now.
up on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Fair?
And I think Lynn will have a lot of her events scheduled by then for the next year, because I think she does mimic a lot of what she does the year prior. So we'll be able to at least get a snapshot, excuse me, of what we're thinking for the next year to be able to discuss that in come October, September. But you took the words right out of my mouth. I think meeting with her in January, I think is key, because then we can set up the whole year with that. And then maybe when we meet in just September, we can maybe brainstorm up from now until then if there's any new events that we would want to plan and bring to the table. You know, maybe we'd bring them to the table to her in September to implement them. I don't know when we would bring them to the table. That would take other planning. But if we wanted, someone had mentioned doing new and additional events, that might be the time to start talking about that.
Yeah, new events are going to be tough only because even September is going to be like too far into the budget process. So like for Lynn right now, I mean, she's planning her events as far as like budget. And events are like, I'm going to do movies in the park, this event, that event, like at least understanding and establishing the budget for that. She's starting that, well, not right now because it's summer, but like that starts in the summer. So something I would say for this first year, new events are going to be really tough for 2027. But I like the idea of specifically developing some of the ideas for like Earth Day because that's one that always falls short. Like, but separating out Earth Day come that January, February, if you guys have like, we're going to do a recycling theme on this day. We want to talk about stormwater. We want to talk about like, I don't know, anything of interest, pollinators, something, and we want to do it at the township events. Come January, February, Lynn will say, all right, you guys have a table here at this time, if that works, and here and this one, this would be a great opportunity for that. If we want to bring in another partner, Master Watershed Stewards, Master Gardeners, we have lead time on that. So I think that's where she at least has like the framework by February. But yeah, I just caution that with like so that next year we can start thinking about like if there is something specific, maybe we talk about that in the fall now, but understand that it won't be able to happen for 2027, most likely, if it's a totally new event.
Sarah, you're just not giving up on that EAC day, are you?
Yeah.
Nope, I'm not.
Keep bringing it up. We'll get it done sometime.
You have your hand up, Sarah. Did you get to say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had to turn it off. I apologize.
That's okay. I didn't want to jump in ahead of you.
Lower my hand. There we go.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking that some of the events that we've already done, and we came back here and we already brainstormed, which was great, and I'm sure it's in the minutes. This is what we liked. This is what was difficult. This is what we'd like to see improved for that event the next time in regard to our participation. And I think all those things were really helpful as well, and things that we should look back on. We might forget when we're planning and then, be like, oh darn, we should have mentioned that. But it's in our notes about the things that we thought.
I can pull all of that for the September, October, whenever we want to have that meeting.
That we could improve.
The biggest takeaway for me from what I heard from you guys that I think emphasizes what you're talking about for that September, October meeting is, Frank, you might have said it, like, it functions a lot better when you have a specific theme.
Yeah.
And you're going in with like, we're going to talk about recycling at this event, and here's the activity associated with recycling. So I think like using the October meeting to develop those themes, activities, and like messaging, then you just plug it into whatever space that like we talked to Lynn about.
Yeah, like last year we did the Sunset Summer Festival. It's an introduction to the EAC. Well, I think we want to do another introduction to the EAC next year, right? We want a different topic. So I think if we talk about it in September, then we can come up with 4 or 5 topics that we think are worth doing, whether we want to bring somebody in from the outside to help with any of those topics, then we can make those decisions.
Frank, you have communications here. Is that what we talked about last month in regard to who's going to write, or are we going to write something?
I'm volunteering to do that.
Oh.
I mean, I've done all the writing so far, and so I'll continue to do that if we come up with, as we come up with topics that we think we want to put in the newsletter or communicate some other way, then I'm happy to do the drafts of those.
Yeah. So how do you guys want to handle I think the benefit to me with that, if Frank is writing that and if we're communicating directly on that, we don't need to wait meeting to meeting to say like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to write? How does it look? because those deadlines go so quickly. Like I just talked to Lynn and it's already the deadline for the next e-newsletter. And then after that, we can even think about the topic for the following e-newsletter as far as like what seasonal theme. So that stuff goes quickly. So do you want to just communicate on that? You write something and we kind of like share it around and email, like, or do we need to wait? I guess like, is there trust in you coming up with
Well,
something?
I mean, I think the fairest thing and the best thing to do would be for us to develop a topic list.
Yeah.
And then I can just research the topics and, you know, but I don't want to do that in isolation. I think we all need to have input into that.
Right. And I think for some of us, depending on what we do and what our interests are, or professions or whatever,
Mhm.
we might be able to add so much information that would be helpful.
Yeah,
we
I'm
get-
not,
or
I'm
we
not
can
an
get a
expert in
master
everything.
gardener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can get a master gardener to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking after the last meeting, we talked about like a communication plan and I started thinking about that. So, and I think like I'd volunteer to do this, to put together like a list of topics, deadlines, when we want to present it. You know, the e-newsletter certainly, but I think other opportunities we could capture there, like pamphlets at the library or digital signs or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And try to, you know, figure out what other avenues we have. And then once we have all that, we can assign names to each item. I'm happy to.
You guys would
volunteer that.
earn ultimate brownie points with Lynn on that. Because it's always like, if you're setting it up for the year, and then it's just easy to send her that, she's like, oh, I can rely on the EAC for communications when I need it. And these are the times that's in their minds, not just for the e-newsletter, but that's where, I mean, we've talked about it for a while. Derek's brought it up before with like social media presence, and everything. We have the Park and Rec Facebook page, so we can put stuff out on that, even in between e-newsletter. Like, it's so much easier if we can just give something to Lynn and say, hey, can you post this? So if you want to incorporate that, but I love that idea of setting up like what you guys are willing to provide as far as communications and those, and I can get you like the deadlines on that for certain things, or at least like how much lead time we might need.
Yeah, I'm happy to administrate that. I don't want to write everything or
Cool.
even a majority even.
Right. And how often does this e-newsletter come out that I don't get?
Well, apparently it doesn't go out at all, but I think every quarter.
Quarter.
Every
So
Yeah.
is the
quarterly.
next one, because you said one's already.
Yeah.
Is the next one fall? Are we thinking, like, because the current one is summer,
Yes.
right? I'm just thinking
I-
for topic generation.
I will respond. I did ask Lynn and I forget. Because there was a really quick deadline. And then I think the next one was fall. Because I think she might have even had something to still go in for the next one.
Mhm.
Like if we got her something this week, it might actually still make like the summer one if we wanted to get something in there. But then the next one would be fall.
Okay. Now, you know, Chris, I read.
Well, Brian, were you suggesting you put together a list of topics or?
I'd say like a topic format and like deadline author. So we'll have like the newsletter as a format. A Facebook post or social media would be another format. Like a library pamphlet or hangout would be another format. So like identifying all the things, and we can come up with like monthly themes and have each thing touch on it. Like I'm happy to discuss how that looks, but what I was envisioning was sort of putting together a matrix of topics, deadline, and location.
Yeah.
Format. And then we can assign that or bring in volunteers to help. I'm sure writing an article counts for volunteer hours. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, Chris, because I read over it again in the minutes, and, you know, you mentioned paper newsletter, it's expensive, blah, blah, blah. But then we did talk at the last meeting, okay, what about the people that aren't going online? How are they gonna find their information? And so I wondered, are some of these articles, can they be submitted to the Parkland Press?
Mm.
You know, and they have a page where there's someone from Master Gardener, there's, you know, they put things in there. So do we see if we can contact someone there quarterly just to make sure that that group is covered, the people that aren't real savvy or don't want to
Mhm.
look at the e-newsletter. I mean, it would be a way to get an article out.
Like a letter to the editor. I don't know how they handle those or an op-ed type of thing. Yeah. The short answer is I don't know. Maybe.
An
Um,
e-newsletter is supposed to be emailed, right? I mean,
Yes. Like
is somebody still looking into that?
yeah, Lynn asked for everybody's email that signed up for it that wasn't getting it to go back to Constant Contact, the company, and like see where any wires have been crossed or
Is
whatnot.
anybody getting it via email or do we know or?
I have not found someone who was getting it. So again, it goes back to they might not even know that they weren't getting. I thought that oh, Sarah, did you raise your hand?
Who would the email be from? Who would it be? If I can do a quick search on my computer here, who would I have gotten it from?
I really don't know because it could be
To look up.
yeah. Because it wouldn't be like info@South Whitehall. It comes from Constant Contact. Yeah.
I get Lynn's emails of sign up for your kids for
Yeah.
this thing, which is not graphics, it's just type.
It's the
whatever.
rec desk. You're on the rec
Yeah, I
desk
get that,
email
but I don't
list.
get
Yeah.
that fancy PDF
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I don't know. They are looking into it.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Lynn about it in a couple weeks, but yeah, she did specifically ask for like I think I gave her like your email. I said, this is Frank's email. I know he signed up for it and he's never received
fine,
it.
yeah.
She's like, digging into that piece. We seem to think that maybe some of the commissioners received it because they've like commented on some of
Mhm.
the material, but they also have a township email address.
Yeah.
So that is something.
Mhm.
So do you think we can look into that part?
Yes. Is that something you guys want me to look into? Is that another like?
Well, I think if Brian's putting that, what you're gonna put the matrix together, what our options are, the social media, the library, the e-newsletter, put Parkland Press on there.
But let's back up a second though, right? I think the first thing we need is a list of topics. Right, and then we can decide
Very true.
what the plan looks like, where, who's writing what for,
Right.
but I think we need to start with a list of topics, at least 6, 8 topics that we want to focus written communications on. So it sounds like maybe that's an activity for next month.
Yeah, should we come
Yeah.
next month with
If you guys can come with stuff.
querying our sources for topics, whatever,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
looks like,
If you
whatever.
just have 1 or 2 ideas, and then we
Yeah.
can just, put a plan together, and then Brian, you can take that and sort of map that out. And then we'll go from there, and then we can assign people to do the various writing tasks,
Mhm.
whether it's one of us or an external expert we need to pull in.
And I have the copy of the old GAC facts that I can send out as kind of to spur ideas. There's a lot of stuff on there. Like, and that was some of, I think, the goal for that of like having these canned things ready, but that might help with more like, oh, we have a number of things we can talk about under this topic.
I wrote most of them, so. Okay, and then the last one is EAC network, so I'll continue to follow up with, trying to attend those meetings and see if we can, garner some value from our partnerships with other EACs.
So if I may just recap from my notes, Parkland Community Library, Marie and Emily, you guys are going to kind of share duties there and continue to coordinate with the library on things that they're interested in, things that we're interested in, and trying to figure out if there's something tangible as far as an event. Parkland School District, Sarah, you've already initiated contact. I know you were waiting for them to follow up. I know it's a tough time of year. You're going to keep that torch going. The communications and Brian, you're going to prepare sort of a like EAC communication plan as far as scoping out what we need to fulfill as far as communications.
And
And
I guess, Brian, if you wanted to start working on that and then just have placeholders for topics, right? And then we could put the topics in after, we could do it that way too. Depending on
Yeah,
your
that's what
preference.
I'm thinking, is to have a draft by the next meeting, and we can work on filling in topics.
Right,
Cool.
that'd be great.
And collectively, we're all gonna come together with some of those topic ideas to plug into that for the next meeting. EAC network, Frank, you'll continue to be that point of contact. And then Master Gardeners, I'll reach out to Joe and I'll copy you, Emily, and you can kind of,
Yes, please.
Run
Yeah,
with
and then I'll
that.
go, yeah.
I'm happy to stick with the Master Watershed Stewards, kind of similar. That's who Paul came to speak to us last time. We saw Mary today. There's just a lot of different interactions
It was
there.
interesting, she didn't know
Yeah,
that somebody, she wasn't sure that somebody had come and talked to us, and then I mentioned it was a gentleman, she didn't know who that might have been, and so.
she's on like kind of a totally different end of like, she's more the data and what they're doing and very focused on the salt wash stuff. But I think that's where like they're already coordinating with Ally. So I think there's things that they're doing and then the education and then tying in salt wash stuff. So I'll take lead on that. And then,
Chris, if you want for that one, like, I think I could probably provide some, I hate to say the term expertise, but some knowledge others may not have on that one, like that's
Yeah.
kind of what I do more than other things. So,
yeah,
that's kind of why I joined, is to share what I know. So,
awesome.
yeah, if you want to keep me on
I will, yeah. Because I think there's two sides of that. There's like the getting their volunteers out in the park and doing cleanups, but then there's also like, what are they doing with the data end and trying to, adjust policies and the like salt reduction work and everything. I think that's kind of, I'm assuming that's more the area that you're interested in, like that piece of it.
yeah, like the science part is really
Yes.
kind of like.
Yeah.
And you're talking watershed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, whole watershed.
I mean, honestly,
I think it's
anything,
great.
like you get groundwater issues,
Yeah,
call me up.
Good.
And then events, we're going to discuss in, should we say that's the October meeting? We'll kind of talk about like planning for themes. And then, and Earth Day, like definitely Earth Day. And then we'll say February, we'll bring in Lynn and solidify everything.
And just one other thing for the communications part, I just, through work, had a hazard communications class, like with a PhD, like doing most of it. I've got a slide deck I can share. I may also like try to like summarize it in one slide. So, just with the messaging, like a lot of it's like the big thing was like 3 topics, keep them quick, short. And this way we can kind of focus our message on, either our posters or any kind of things we do where it's like, just keep it simple. And
Yeah.
like just basically pound, similar messages throughout.
That's what I like about the communications plan is like establishing we need this by this time, and here's the breadth of each of that. So if it's like a newsletter article, having an idea of like framing, like how much content is that involved? How deep do you get into a topic versus like what we're gonna do for like either a presentation here or at an event. Like that's more of the like, we can get into it. A Facebook post might be a quick, like, 2-3 things and a picture or something. So I think assigning, like using that and assigning it to the communication plan just makes it so easy. I'm not worried about it. Then it's like, you guys can just come up with the topics and then plug that stuff in.
Like one of like the big takeaways from that was like a message map where, you kind of do like an outline of like the 3 topics you want and then like 3 things about each topic. And you kind of use that to, frame how you do it. So you can use that for a big thing or, just even bullets. Again, it's hazard so it's a bit not entirely applicable, but I think it works, on all methods.
Do we have analytical information, Chris, on how many people actually visit the Facebook page and read it? What do you?
I asked about the website. We're working with our website person now. And I can ask about that later this
I'm
week.
just curious.
I'm sure Facebook has that built in somewhere. But you got to remember the Facebook it's park and rec specific. So it's you're kind of the data for that is people are driving there for a specific thing. But the website, understanding where people are going, like what are some of the my concern is people aren't going anywhere because we get
My
yeah.
concern.
Yeah, they get if it's not on the homepage, they're not.
Yeah.
It's a 2-click problem. If you can't get it in 2 clicks, no one's looking.
Right, so here we are talking about all these really great topics that we feel people need to know about. And so that's why, like Brian's idea, we really need to think about how are we most effective? Because, yeah, I hear it all the time. 2 clicks, oh, forget it, I can't find it. I think we talked about that the last time, where people were like, well, I don't know where it is, I can't find it, and then the e-newsletter, well, we're not getting that, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's.
But to your point, Maria, the metrics are important, because
Yeah.
if we're gonna put a plan together, we
Sure.
want to prioritize forums where people are actually
Reading.
looking.
Yeah.
And finding it and
Yeah,
reading,
right, yeah.
Yeah. I think Facebook, the e-newsletter, and if you guys want to do some sort of print communication, and then what you're doing for in-person connection points with the takeaway. I think the handouts that you guys have had at past events have been great. Like I think that's another that's really where you're reaching people because it's direct. Like that they're there. So
And we should look at two first, right, where if you do an event, that should also be a communication. Yeah, post the event, we should, summarize what we did and put it on,
Oh yeah.
newsletter or
Yeah.
wherever, right? I mean, but we can, get 2 for 1 if we do that. So some of the topics should be summaries of events we've done, right? So.
Your EAC members out in the wild.
I mean, you do an event, you're gonna touch so many people, but if you
Mhm.
then communicate after the event about what you did, then there's maybe 2 more people you can reach, right? So.
Yeah, and I think it helps too, because then at like the next event, they're like, oh yeah, like I didn't know there was an EAC, and that they go to the events and then they say like, oh, they see these people, and now I'll go talk to the EAC instead of just you trying to lure them over with candy.
Yeah, great. That all sounds good.
Because we've all agreed that there are so many important topics out there. And we've been talking about that for a long time. So how do we get it out there?
I think what we're coalescing around is that we want, education to be a priority for this council, right?
It's very much needed, and I think what you guys are doing in developing this kind of education communications plan, you're also addressing other township communication issues, which is fantastic. Like the fact that the EAC is developing a communication plan specific to you guys is something that we need to take to the rest of the township, and so I think it's definitely a missing piece that
Might not
this
see
group
any
is
other
filling.
volunteer boards doing anything like this.
No.
We gotta beat the
Yeah.
Watch out, zoning commission.
Yeah. They'll come out. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so let's move on because I do want to leave time for Brian's
Mhm.
idea to discuss it. So Chris, you want to talk about policy review?
Yeah, the not so fun stuff, but
Super fun.
yeah.
No, I love this stuff.
No, I think like, and I put into the in the packet just the page on ordinances and policies. I started to look at so what we are really looking at from like internally. Our biggest needs in my department are to get all of these great ideas. You guys talk about like get these great ideas out into a communication plan to tell people. We have the struggle of get all these ideas into a code and get this stuff so we can actually utilize it. So this is a big push like from our end. And I think what I wanted to do as we're kind of waiting, or as you guys are kind of waiting for my team to come together with more like drafts or considerations on ordinance updates, I looked at like the initial goal number 1 of the ordinance review and just kind of having you all understand what ordinances we have, how we're using those, and start to look at those when you start to see an update or things that we should consider in the update, just more familiarizing yourselves. And this also came from the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission meeting right before this. They asked like they review land development plans. Like, can we like re-review all of the ordinances that were reviewed? Like, it starts to become second nature. So I just wanted to kind of high level talk about some things. If you guys have questions, the other thing I looked at was if you remember when Bushkill Township came to speak to us, and for Brian and Emily, I don't know how much we talked about this. We met with Bushkill Township, I believe, early last year, and they talked to us about what their process is for a number of things, but one of their roles is their land development review. So they actually have a checklist. I'll show that to Sarah. I don't know if she can see that. Yeah, I don't have a digital copy. They have a pretty robust checklist that their EAC goes through when they're reviewing land development plans. For all of our other advisory boards, they kind of review like one component of the ordinance. You guys are a little bit more broad. And that's where I want to kind of balance this idea of what codes do we have that need to be updated to address an EAC specific role in it? What are some of the missing things that we need to create? And then how do we take that and put it into a very simple checklist? The other thing is, I think that this piece of the duties of the EAC in general, in any EAC, this can very much start to dominate like what takes up the most of our time. And I just want to be cognizant of that because of all the other things that you get. I mean, we have a huge goal with just education outreach. We also have a ton of other goals that you guys have addressed. So I want to really kind of think about not getting ourselves too deep into the creating more of a challenge with land development review for ourselves, understanding that it can quickly take up, you know, an hour of a meeting for every time. So with that, I just highlighted a couple of ordinances that I'll just kind of share. And we've talked about these, but these are things that have come up in the past. So I guess what I wanted to do is kind of open up to you guys. If you have questions about like what ideas you want to be looking at as far as land development review, because in my mind, I can easily sort of shape what ordinance updates we're making. And if there's other things that's like, oh, I thought we would be reviewing this, I want to start to talk about that now to either say it's like in an ordinance somewhere, or my concern of getting too deep into the weeds on that moving forward. So like, for example, stormwater management, we have, like, I think it's come up before about like looking at things as far as stormwater. We have I don't know, 100-page stormwater management ordinance that we have to kind of meet by law. It's very much a big piece of what our township engineer looks at. So it's one of those things that, like, as important as stormwater management is to the EAC, I just want to be cognizant of like, where are we incorporating that into our code updates, or is that something that's more left to what's there? There's other things on here that are, I think, a little out of the scope of at least our group from a capacity standpoint. You know, septic systems, looking at, you know, specific wetland information. I think in general, my goal would be the updates to the official map where we identify resource priorities, and then having you guys look at those resource priorities when it comes to a land development plan and making comments on, is that in an area of a resource priority? And if it is, what are your concerns that should be addressed there? The other piece I think that's very easily added that there's a gap in right now is non-recreational open space. Because we have the Park and Rec Board looks at open space dedications for recreation purposes. And I think as we get these non-recreation open spaces built in, having good comments on that. Other than that, I guess what direction are you guys thinking for some of this? And are there pieces that you'd want to see or information I can bring forward that would be helpful for your knowledge of what you want to look at when it comes to plan review?
So, I
I see
mean,
that.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have a digital copy. So
Can I take a picture?
yeah, I'll see if I can get one from Carrie and send it out.
I think to do this properly, and this would take a lot of time, is I think we want to review what's currently in each one of these policies. And then say, we think environmental concerns are addressed with the language that's already there or not.
Mm.
And if not, then here are the aspects from an environmental standpoint that we think need to be addressed. But I think, in my mind, the only way to do that would be to go through what's already in place and review the whole document.
Yeah. And that's where, so there's the first one here, and I started to think about what I could pull together for you guys, but some of it is so robust that, and there's not a lot to specifically point to in the existing ordinances that would have a very good involvement with the EAC. We would have to create that. We'll kind of move past the brush, grass, and weeds one. We talked about that. That's the one where I think that's a simple update to say that goes back to the naturalization. Yeah.
Not a simple update.
The high weeds and grass one.
Brush and grass.
Well, I guess it's
Yeah.
not land development review.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
That's the one that I put that to the side because I think that can happen independently from more complex. We need to update codes and we need to specify what the EAC's role in those code updates are. Whereas this one I think is more just an exercise of updating.
Sarah's got something.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Just, I'm so sorry. Before we lose it, I know you had mentioned about stormwater and like the wetlands, and I know that's really kind of, there's lots of codes in place. I think just something to, before it gets buried forever, just something maybe to add and throw out there is that I know we have all these policies, but maybe just having more enforcement and more of maybe a team internally, externally, whatever, that has more of an eye on to make sure these things are actually are happening. Whether, I know when the developments happen in the beginning, it's fine, they have an ordinance, but 6 months down the road, a year down the road, there's no more enforcement and things can get changed and overlooked. And so the only thing I'd like to add to the stormwater or the wetlands is, or maintaining water on one's property when the new development is being built, is perhaps better enforcement down the line. Maybe we could add that in somehow.
Township, I mean, like, once
Yeah,
because
so-
we're at the building plans, but then once the building starts, that's not EAC anymore, right?
Yeah, and that's why I kind of wanted to separate, like, I think what you're talking about with like enforcement, and that's why I kind of separate enforcement stuff with the high weeds and grass stuff. I think that's a separate conversation from what I'll say is the internal topic at hand, and that's updating like the saldo stuff and specifically your involvement in land development review. The other stuff we can certainly, get to. I think it's a matter of priority. The saldo stuff I think is most important because that's right now, as we don't update saldo all the time. Whereas the other stuff can happen a little bit easier. The stormwater management, just to kind of circle back to that, that's probably the one that I would say, in my opinion of what's in there, is lacking more on the upfront stuff rather than the back end stuff, Sarah. So anything that's involved with this ordinance and any new land development that comes in, the township actually takes easements for stormwater management on those properties. So we're more intimately involved in stormwater management facilities than anything else that we're doing. If there's, historic issues, it might not have been underneath this stormwater management ordinance. It might have been an old system. It might have been something that we actually don't have an easement on, but I can almost guarantee you that anything new coming in, stormwater management is the most highly enforced and regulated aspect of what we do as a township. Where I think things may be somewhat lacking is the non-structural stormwater management end of things. So the green infrastructure versus the gray infrastructure. And I think that's a great touch point for the EAC. And that's something that I'd like to see incorporated into this so that someone submits a land development plan, they don't need to create, very engineered, lots of structural stormwater management facilities, but that's where the ideas of, bioswales and naturalized basins and that sort of thing comes in. But until the ordinance allows for that to happen, they're stuck creating what's in the ordinance. So that's where I think it's more the upfront. But as far as enforcement of other things, I think we can look at that. But does that kind of answer that, Sarah? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it was a thoughtful answer, and thank you. Realizing that that request or mention is out of our control, but just making note of that, as a citizen, I think that I see that maybe not in those items I mentioned, that perhaps down the road, and I know we've mentioned that there's not staff enough to be able to, township staff enough to be able to manage that. Cause it's, how do we do that? But I just wanted to just throw that out there when we were mentioning those ordinances, knowing that we as an EAC don't have the authority to make that change, but I just wanted to note it.
and I want to, I look at you guys as bringing up issues that we as staff may not be aware of, environmental issues we may not be aware of. And I don't know, that's where I'm sort of like, is enforcement of stormwater facilities something that actually is an issue? Like it doesn't seem to come up as an issue to me, but I could be wrong. And I think specifically that's something that this ordinance kind of has to address.
Yeah.
But if there are, if that is something that you guys are seeing and it's something that we should be thinking about, we want to know that. That's kind of the task of this board. Whereas again, I was seeing it more as the upfront stuff in this. But
Yeah, can you give an example, Chris? Like you have on here, and I guess, well, you have on here the brush, grass, and weeds ordinance. So if it's up front, when we're looking at a plan, what's the upfront for that?
yeah, that's where I shouldn't have included this one.
You should
This
not
has nothing
include
to
it. I
do
wondered
with,
about
yeah,
that. Okay.
this has nothing to do with land development.
Okay.
What would you say is the priority of looking at and establishing our process for how we do land development and like conditional use reviews, like that checklist?
Mhm.
Or would you say reviewing the ordinance for any outdated or opportunities to allow for a more eco-friendly option? Like what is the priority in your mind? I'm confused, I guess.
Right.
I tried to go through the subdivision land development ordinance and identify areas of potential interest that I thought the EAC would want to look at and see if there's a way for us to adjust those areas in the existing saldo and specifically create a role for the EAC to review it. What I found was there really just isn't even enough in there as far as addressing specific environmental concerns, other than things like stormwater, which we have a whole separate ordinance for. That I guess the question to you guys is, what are some of the things that you think we should be exploring related to land development review? And I can try to find a way to see if that is appropriate in saldo or if that's already addressed in another aspect of the township code that we can look at separately. I think a lot of it will come back to the township official map and just identifying locations of important resources. We've talked about woodlands, wetlands, steep slopes, areas of significant habitat, mapping all of that, having the EAC identify where those are, I think is a big missing piece, and it goes a long way. And then having follow up to, whether it's you can't develop within 100 feet from a wetland. That's a good example, and that's something that the EAC would have an appropriate review of. If you're looking at a land development plan, you pull up the official map and it shows the wetland, and you make that comment of, this is a wetland, there's a 100-foot buffer around it, and so forth.
What about minimization of impact on existing infrastructure, groundwater, power use? I mean, all the things that are going to come up with the data center, right? I think that the EAC would have some.
And you're talking non-data center specific types of
Yeah,
developments.
just land development.
Yeah.
Is it being done in a way that's minimizes the environmental impact?
Yeah. I would say if we can try to find some objective standards to address that. So what would the challenge with land development is we have to hold it up against to meet the standard. So
Yeah.
what is that standard? And how do we quantify impact, I guess is the question. And that's just because I don't know. That's what I'm struggling with.
Well, I mean, this kind of ties in and also puts forward what I care about, one of the things I care about. But when they do land development, what I see, I think, is that land developers usually come in and chop everything down and clear everything. So as a starting point, when there's going to be an open space in the end that does not have development, do they have to chop everything down? Or could we strategically leave some of the spaces that are valuable and not have them raise it?
Are
Because
they
that's not
minimizing
serving
the amount of
anything.
impervious surface
Yeah.
that's being created,
So-
right? I mean, so.
That's something I talked with Dave, I'm pretty sure I talked with Dave Manhart about. It's the exact thing you're talking about.
Just look at the trees.
I mean, I leave these trees.
Yeah.
What are you getting rid of? You don't even know what you're getting rid of,
Mhm.
I mean, if it's invasive, that's one thing. If it's a native tree that provides a lot of good things, well, then that should be mentioned.
And if they're not even building there anyway,
Yeah,
right? If it's part tied into this open space thing, so they're not even gonna build there, they just chop down all the trees. And you're like, I don't know, we're not helping the environment by leaving
No.
open.
Or,
Grass,
maybe there's offsets, right? So they
Sure.
chop down trees here, but they plant them somewhere else where they're not
Sure.
developed, right, or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, so.
but there's a lot of that.
There's a lot
I
of
mean,
just, wow, where did those birds go? I don't know.
Right, well, no, you're right. And I know before we built, that was a big thing. I mean, I was seeing that all over the valley. Just chop them all down, put them in the middle of the lot, and they were actually setting them on fire.
Oh, wow.
Blew
Wow.
my mind. They didn't burn them.
So I'm looking, I guess, this is great. I'm looking for to have a list of the land development code updates, at least topics that you guys are interested in seeing, things that can be related that I can then take back. So I'm putting in open space, non-recreational. I'm putting in woodlands and trees. That's very easy to kind of create something to come back to you guys. Green infrastructure, and the impacts piece, I'll probably need a little bit more just to kind of better understand. That's something for us to think about.
The town can't control water withdrawal, right?
So if if a project comes in and they need township water, as far as the utility, like, I mean, we are a water provider, then we absolutely can do that. And that's what, we already do that. So, that is reviewed under every land development. We say, here's, what do you need? Can we provide it? And we look at all of the details of that, including the infrastructure specific needs, the long-term needs, and we can put restrictions on that. And we do that every land development.
But I think also, we should ask the question, have alternatives been looked at to minimize the requirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least ask the question, right? And the answer may come back, well, if we use alternative B, we reduce water usage, but it's a lot more expensive, and so we're not gonna do that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so there could be reasons why the answer is, we're not doing that, but I think the EAC should have a role in at least asking that question.
So I think understanding like water usage, just information on water usage is a good starting point. And I will add, my response was on township specific water because we do control the utility,
Right.
but water, well water or someone else, it's not as much in our jurisdiction, but that could be something when we're talking about water as a resource of the township, as a natural resource of the township. This might be an opportunity to add in more water use specific questions, potentially some requirements associated with that, of things that aren't covered under our normal understanding of allocation.
I mean, we're in a long-term drought situation now.
Mhm.
Groundwater is an important resource to preserve.
So I think I personally, I want more time to read through those specific sections.
Yeah, I just wanted to start bringing it up, especially for you two, because we spent more time with this last year, but.
I think the general ask is, what can we do in these sections to make it something we can objectively review, rather than just saying, you should consider these things, what things are they?
Yeah,
Yes.
what ordinances is EAC gonna own, right? Like
Mhm.
that we then review if land development came to us.
Well, it'd be kind of more,
Or do
where
we
is your
write
role
one?
in an existing
not
Or
gonna
do we
own.
need to write one? Well, not own.
Yeah.
Sorry, but,
Well, it'll
We're
be,
gonna contribute to
Yeah.
reviews of these ordinances, right?
right,
So, yeah.
yes, sorry.
so yes, like where is your role
Yeah,
in the ordinance and what are you reviewing it against? Yeah.
Like I read the trees ordinance and I was trying to figure out, I'm so glad you said what you said in the beginning about, how does this work with this plan that we are reviewing? And I'm like, I read that and I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know that trees, the way the ordinance is written should be, it's almost like brush, grass and weeds, in my opinion, just by what's in that ordinance. You
Yes.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe it's after the things are built,
Yeah.
from what I'm.
And that's why I shouldn't have put
Yeah.
that one in there. That was more of one that I would love to work with this group on updating that, because we've talked about it. It's the subdivision and land development ordinance and the zoning ordinance. I think are the big pieces. I wanted to bring forward stormwater management because it ties in so critically, but also to show that it's very robust on its own. And the other nice thing, almost to Sarah's point, is like the stormwater management ordinance is it's not only applicable to land development, it is applicable outside of that and past land development. And that's where those easements come into place and those long-term either maintenance strategies or just enforcement strategies with the township. But I do think it could use a little bit more work with the green infrastructure end of it. Okay, this is helpful. I think I will try to continue to put some of these concepts to paper in areas of existing ordinances. The piece that I like, when we reviewed this last year, I gave a list of all kinds of different municipal ordinances, like tree restriction ordinances, riparian ones. I like the idea, and this is something we'll need to vet as staff, of having in the zoning ordinance, like a resource protection overlay. And that resource protection overlay is kind of a catch-all for all of these different resources that we can identify. And then that's where we would maybe establish a specific role for the EAC. We can have things in saldo, which are when land developments come to us, but we can also have a role for, we have protections even outside of new land developments.
That would be awesome. That would be really great.
Are we thinking though that that review should be reduced to a checklist? I mean, I think that's probably.
Yeah, like, and that's what
Forward way to do it.
I need to think about what kind of role, if that's the case and it's not a new land development, what kind of role is appropriate for the EAC if it's just a zoning function? So I don't know. Because at that point, it might not be something that's necessary or even appropriate to bring to the EAC, but your role in crafting that,
Yeah.
absolutely. But once it's kind of there, that would be a function of the zoning officer
Yeah.
to enforce.
That would be great.
I think if we, if we write into the ordinance a role for the EAC, then I think having a checklist accompanying that role, so we know what are the topics that the EAC will review or comment on, right? So I think that having the checklist makes it a lot more specific.
I think like what I'm envisioning is you guys would get a land development project, and we're just talking land development right now, and it says, project A comes in, you look at it, and the EAC has a checklist that says, okay, are there any locations of this project on the natural resource priorities of the official map? Yes or no? And if it's a yes, do we have a specific follow-up, or is that just a follow-up question? Something that you guys review. And maybe there's things underneath that, like more like geographic focused. Is there, open space to be dedicated? Yes. What kind of open space? Make comments on the open space. Did they satisfy the intent of the open space in accordance with, like, it's going to be a managed natural area as defined? They propose something, you guys review it. Is it a managed natural area? Yes. If not, you make a comment to say, well, they just put a grass field there. There's nothing, they're not proposing any planting, please provide information on planting, that sort of thing. Checklist of if we can get the stormwater management piece. Our green infrastructure, are there green stormwater structure proposed?
Yeah.
Yes,
Chris, it sounds great. Just do that.
yeah, well, that's it. I want to make sure I'm, capturing what you guys are interested in, and I can start to do it, because it's kind of all over. But and I mean, if you do some of that list, it's a big list. Like if you look at that, like what they're looking at goes far beyond, I think, anything we would have the capacity to do. Only because 3/4 of that is addressed through our township engineer, our stormwater team, our utility engineer, DEP. Like I don't know. It just seems like, and I should go to a Bushkill Township EAC meeting one time and see what Carrie does with them. 'Cause they might just be spending time looking at this just to check it off. But I think in understanding our time, like I want to streamline the process give it the attention that it needs for sure, but not spend an hour going through a
EAC is
checklist.
also pretty much a staff organization, not a
True.
volunteer organization, right?
Very true.
So they're getting paid to go through this check.
Yeah.
They're not volunteering their time to go through this check, right? No, I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, that's an important distinction.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think they
Two people
have.
came to talk to us. One was a supervisor and one was the township manager, right? I mean, or.
No, well, Carrie is full-time. Carrie is a role that I would play. He's like the liaison, but he does a lot of that with I think that's the other difference too. A lot of this stuff, if I'm spending my time on it. No offense to you guys, but I'm also working with our township staff,
Yeah.
going through these details and making my comments. And the chair of the EAC is a supervisor, and so I think they're a lot more intimately involved in the land development review process. I don't know what their planning commissions look like. I don't know how much. We have a lot of consultants and engineers and different people that look at things. So
Yeah, so this checklist, I mean, it's EAC, it's planning, it's zoning,
It's-
all,
it's
all
a lot
like
in-
kind of
yeah,
merged together, right? So
yeah.
we would, as an EAC, we would only be looking at a subset of this set of topics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's all I have on the code end of things. If you guys need any help navigating codes, if you want to review it, I didn't want to print out, a 70-page salvo when there's different pieces, but any questions that anyone has, please reach out to me. But in the meantime, I'll kind of take the general topics you guys are interested in, start to plug that into areas where it can be updated, and then I'm worried we won't get all of the codes updated in time. I don't want to wait till everything is done to establish a checklist to get you guys doing land development review. I want you guys getting into that process with certain things.
So I think, I mean, if you're willing, Chris, I think it'd be helpful for you to draft the checklist soon
Okay.
and then have us go through it and see if it's covering all the topics that we think should be covered, right? It sounds like you've got some ideas already on what should be in that checklist.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it needs to be a checklist with what we have today, and then a process to evaluate the ordinance, and then the checklist evolves as we look at the ordinances.
That sounds good.
All right, so we have an action item there. So, interest of time, let's move to our next topic. So, Brian, you want to talk about what you proposed to Chris and me?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we talked about how we could incorporate into the township bidding process and in reviewing land development proposals, different sustainability metrics. So I shared, and just for them, since I was using examples from my professional life, but the general idea is that we would have metrics or a bar set for these different environmental impacts. So greenhouse gas emissions, which you break out into like scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, being like direct on site versus indirect from supply chain, that sort of thing. Your freshwater impacts, your like emissions impacts, like all of these different things. Basically, you set a bar for the township or per industry, per zone, whatever it may be. And then as part of the review, you would compare the proposal to that bar, whether it's a positive impact, neutral, or negative impact. The idea being we want to try to quantify this as much as possible, but also contextualize it. So understanding, some like a new development is obviously going to have a negative impact, but what does that mean compared to similar types of development? So basically, having a way to compare like development or like proposals to get an to understand, what are they incorporating. So Frank and Chris, you guys had some suggestions of how that might be implemented. It sounds like on the land development might be more difficult, but that's the general idea.
So a couple comments I'd offer. First of all, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions,
Not relevant to.
way too complicated and way too, I think you can make those numbers look whatever you want them to look, in my opinion.
Still forecasts.
Yeah.
Marketing people.
So, this is obviously something we'd have to get the board to buy into, right? 'Cause it's work, it's new work that would be created, right? So, I personally think the way to start with the board would be to just ask to measure these things, not to impose any requirements. Let's at least measure these things, and if we can get approval to measure them, then we can just track them over time And then maybe, we can build a case to say, we want to put some restrictions on these impacts and, or, some of these metrics are, we want to try to rein them in. But I think going to the board with an idea that, we want to impose these requirements on new development, I personally think that's a tough ask to start.
They won't know where it's been up until that point. So even if we have a really reasonable bar, it'll be hard for us to say, well, don't worry, it's, because nothing's.
There's no
been measured so
baseline.
far.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so
We
they
need-
ask
We need
that.
to measure for some period of time to get a baseline.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the ask, in my opinion, would be, let's start measuring this and establish the baseline.
I think,
Now, I
And
mean,
then that would-
Brian, I think you made a good point that there's go-bys that we could use. If we wanted to establish a baseline today, there's credible go-bys, we could go and look at, what other similar townships have done. And so
I
it's not
think-
like there's no data out
Sure.
there, but I think.
But I'm sure every developer will say, well, but my case is totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be easier if we're like, well, your case, we are comparing to your case, so I think it'll just.
Yeah, I think, like, to your point, Frank, the first step to me would be just having start collecting information and then have the applicants submit that they have to submit that they've considered it. There's not an objective measure, but it becomes part of the submission requirement.
So that would have to be in Saldo, right?
yeah, so before we go too far, I want to separate the two because I think they're two really good options with two different paths. I think quickly on the land development side, as I said, like in my email, I think it'll be more difficult, but actually after tonight's conversation, what I think I can do is build in some of what you guys discuss as those kind of metrics into what you were getting at with those impacts. So I would say let's kind of put that to the side for now. That's going to be the hardest thing to codify in Saldo, but I think it's a good goal for us to get to. So I just don't want to worry about that too much because I think there's a lot that we could try to prioritize that would have the secondary goal of then once we get that shaped, figure out how it fits into Saldo. I love the idea of like establishing the baseline because my challenge was going to be how do we establish and I'm thinking for like bid projects, township projects, things that we are doing, having this, sustainability evaluation matrix for everything. And we're looking at it. And if we start with over the next year, just figuring out what those topics that we want to address, greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, material usage, recycling impacts, stuff like that, we can start to figure. That's going to take a process too. And that'll help us figure out the questions to ask when we're putting something out to bid. I did follow up, I thought this would be great for, as we mentioned last time, the trash contract. We're still further out from that than I thought. I thought that was probably going out to bid next year, but it seems like that might not be for another 2 years or something. So we have plenty of time to do data collection and establish that criteria because I think that's a really good applicable bid to put some of this stuff into. So, and we kind of talked earlier about the salt reduction efforts. My challenge with the salt reduction efforts has been, well, we don't know what we're doing yet. We don't know what we're using yet. So how do we know we need to reduce? We know the impact. So, and I think that's it. It usually takes a season or two to get this to figure out. So I think that's where spending, this group spending your time figuring out what are the topics, how do we want to measure those, and then we can figure out, I can kind of bring in, bring it internally to say okay, here are the things we want to look at. Where can we pull this data from? And then also looking at some of our, neighboring communities, who else is doing this. And so the other thing I want to mention is, I think the other piece that kind of two birds with one stone is, I don't know how much we've talked about this before, but the Sustainability Pennsylvania is a sustainability certification program, and it's just a feel-good thing through Department of Community and Economic Development, but it's kind of like the LEED certification. There's different levels, so there's a number of criteria in here that if you meet it, you get a different level of your sustainability certification. There's a lot that what we're talking about might translate into something like this, and this might get more traction with like, or it's just a tweaking of like, hey, if we're going to look at this metric, maybe we should look at it in something that we can measure against this, because I think this is something that was of interest a year or two ago
To the
to
board.
the board, to the township.
All right.
New board, new staff, I don't know, but it's just another thing. Now, granted, it's sustainability, which is much more encompassing than just environmental aspects. So we might get to the point where, sure, we're going to do all the great checking on environmental aspects, but there's all kinds of other stuff that it would take way too much time to go through this. But I think it's a good exercise, and I think it's a good way to look at maybe some of our municipalities that have received this and see what kind of data they have or how they've measured things, if it relates to kind of the general goal of what we're looking for. So I can send out this, and I can even do some outreach to some of the other communities and try to pull some things that can go into the developing of the matrix or those baselines.
Did you say we have a copy that you gave us one prior? or-
No, I'll just send it out. It's
That'd be great.
yeah.
Chris, you know, like, would the township be allowed to like ask for bidders to supply this information, or is like that bid process dictated by like a law?
It's a good question, because I think that there's different, I could see it being applicable, and I'm saying this without any authority on the bidding process, but I think that some bids for some programs, potentially you could incorporate, like if we're doing a playground project or a new parking lot or something like that as one of the township parks, I don't see why we couldn't incorporate something like this. Now, the challenges through competitive bids through like co-stars and things like that, like we might not be able to dictate this additional metrics that's not in there. But there are some projects that are a little bit more flexible. So I'd like to start with it and see where it can fit. But I wouldn't get my hopes up that it can be like a township-wide policy for all
Yeah,
kinds of
I'm sure we
things.
couldn't get it to be an evaluation criteria either, but at least
Yeah.
getting that data, when we know we award contracts, if they're providing that information, we could at least start our.
Well, I mean, it could be some sort of evaluation criteria. It might not be the decision maker, though. I think it's, the really nice example that I think you brought up last time was under the current trash contracts, when they went through that evaluation criteria, let's say everybody, I mean, everyone provided the same services. That's what like didn't change. That was the constant. Everyone wanted the same services. It's just a matter of the amount of the contract to do that, who was the lowest bidder and so forth. If say you get the same product, this roughly the same number, but you have this additional environmental evaluation, it might help say, well, that's the reason we want to go with this. If it comes down to, it's between 2 or 3 or something like that. I don't see that there's a specific reason we couldn't incorporate that into some evaluation criteria.
Or like with the trash contract, did anybody discuss routing, right? I mean, how many truck miles are you generating every month?
Yeah.
And, is one bid superior to the other, right? I mean,
Yeah, and I found out today that like we had something in of like we wouldn't take a contract with like trucks that were beyond a certain age because of some of like the environmental impacts and so forth. So and that's that's not out of that's pretty common to say like, well, there's a concern, like we're not going to accept this because there's a concern. So I think part of it is environmental concern. But, and pulled up the Sustainable Pennsylvania. So the assessment criteria. So yeah, you can see these are the list of criteria. So there's a lot of stuff in there, but like waste materials management, because the municipality has done an assessment or audit measuring the average annual tonnage sent to landfill or incinerator, quality of volume. So it's just a matter of like, you get points for, have you done something like this? And
Is there any incentive or is this just that?
I think it's just a feel good thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, the incentive is being more sustainable.
Right. But like if we, I don't know if this is possible, but like in South Whitehall have something like this for local businesses, or people doing business in the township. Like to say, like, it doesn't mean that come with a reward, but they could get a sign to hang up or whatever, you know, people like that.
Yeah, it's a good
Corporate social
question.
media
I'm wondering if,
events over that.
like, I'm wondering if there's something built into that. I'm looking through the economic development side. The municipality maintains or supports programs to recognize local businesses or leaders who encourage or improve sustainability. Select all apply. So yeah. So right there, by establishing a program like that, it's automatically 3 points in our.
3 points for
Yeah.
South
But that's where like this becomes a much like more robust process, and that's where if we're using this kind of sustainability matrix as like it could be the catalyst to us looking into something like this. I'd rather just, if we're gonna spend some time on it, let's see if it can
Let's do
lead to
it in
something
a form
else.
that fits
Exactly.
here, and then maybe other teams can do that.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
It sounds like we want to start with an opt-in kind of approach, right? Where we're not requiring anyone to do anything, but we give them the opportunity to provide data.
Mm-hmm.
And if they choose to provide those data, then we can recognize them for doing so or something like that with some kind of certification or.
Yeah. So kind of circling back to like what the next action would be. I love the idea of going to the board and asking to start collecting this data.
Mhm.
And I think we could talk about this coming up from the EAC, discussing the trash contract, the future trash contract, and how impressed you were with the benefits that we have, the environmental benefits from the existing trash contract. And then if we want to add something like this, of like, this sets a baseline for potentially things that we can try to incorporate in township policies, but it also can support something like this type of program. I think that would get a lot of support from the board to say like, yeah, start collecting data. I don't know if you guys want to spend some time to figure out like what categories. I think that would help to say like, here's what we kind of want to collect. And then once we're ready with that, I can take it to the board at a BOC meeting.
So it sounds like, so in June, we're talking about topics for communications and maybe salvo, whatever people have looked at, or, not
Yeah.
especially. So it feels like it'd be a lot to
It's
have
definitely
the
a
meaty
lot.
discussion about this also in June. Should we put that in July? Is there a timing
So
urgency?
if you guys are okay to shifting the courtesy of the floor, I had a couple of updates schedule wise.
Sure.
So Project Atlas resubmitted. So it's not deemed complete yet, and it would have been way too much to bring it tonight. If it's complete, if everything's there, if they check all the boxes, it'll probably come to you guys in June at the next meeting. I think the problem is the planning commission meeting is ahead of your review. So we're trying to figure that out internally. Like, what do we do? Do we just take it to planning commission and then review it with you guys after, then submit the comments? That's probably the most likely path. The other wrench in that is I'm traveling
in June during our meeting, but there's a chance I might be traveling back that day. I'm in Utah, and I think I fly into Philly at like 1 or 2. So I might be back. So if it is on the schedule, I'm definitely out 2 weeks ahead of that. So I'm not going to be able to do anything to prepare for the meeting. So I'm going to have to leave instructions to Dave or someone. I might be able to make the meeting. If Project Atlas comes in, we kind of have to dedicate the whole meeting to that, just in anticipation of the crowd. So I think continue to try to get the communication stuff together, because a lot of that can be kind of resolved through email. Like that doesn't need to be whole meeting discussion. And I would definitely say, get that stuff together, send it. Maybe we can have a quick, conversation about it towards the end of the meeting. But and Project Atlas, like you guys don't have a ton to review. Like you have stuff to review, but it's not as like I don't know. It depends. It really depends. So that kind of consider that pushing everything else back to the July. And I really don't know how it's going to go with Project Atlas moving forward, because we could get into this. There's stuff to review. There could be resubmissions. There could be follow-up items. So just consider that. But I do think the communications plan is something to definitely prioritize, and we can communicate that outside of meetings until it gets to the point where we're like, all right, here's what we're looking at, here's the plan. And then still shooting for that like September, October timeframe for everything else. That's why I really want to get the feedback on the ordinancing, because I'll be working on all of that, understanding that we probably won't have a lot of time to discuss in upcoming meetings, just because they'll probably be more full agendas.
Kristen, I think our last meeting, you made a comment about that we might do a meeting at a larger place.
Yes,
Spring
thank you.
House and
Yeah.
joint, and is that what we're thinking here or not?
I love the idea of a joint advisory board meeting, or at least just try to, get them all. That way the public can show up and get their environmental questions answered, get their public safety questions answered all in one fell swoop. But I just don't think we have time for that. I mean, we haven't really fully discussed that. So I think it's just going to be the normal meeting times. As far as venue, you guys will be the last to experience the advisory board. So it'll go to public safety and park and rec, and then planning commission before our meeting is scheduled. So we'll see how the crowds are. And we will definitely let you know early if we're going to shift that to a bigger venue, because we'll have to re-advertise that as such. But as of today, I think we're doing business as usual.
With the same date in June?
Yes, yeah, I think we're definitely going to try to keep the date. I think that was the concern. If we move everything together, you're changing dates, and it could actually confuse people more. And then you risk like someone showing up on whatever the 24th or 22nd or what it is, and we're like, oh no, we reviewed that 2 weeks ago. So I don't have any definitive answers today, but I promise you we are discussing this and trying to figure out what is the best opportunity for public engagement, the most reasonable and the safest area for a public meeting, and how do we address this in a short time frame.
Okay, so we're thinking about that same date in June, and
As of today, nothing has changed, so let's just plan for the same date in June. And I am away the 2 weeks
But the
before.
information will be got.
Yes.
In a
Yeah.
manner, so that because I feel like I might want to be extra super prepared for that meeting.
And so that's kind of the other challenge is like, so even, like public safety commission is, the plans haven't even been deemed complete, and public safety's in a few weeks. So
I think as an EAC, we should have a lot of questions
Yeah.
related to this project around water usage, around electricity usage, emissions, noise. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we're gonna have comments on, because there's different ways this project can be designed that will have different levels of environmental impact. And, I think those are legitimate questions that we have to ask as an EAC.
Are they gonna be on public water?
I haven't looked at the most recent submission. What was submitted before was yes.
Yeah.
Well, so what was submitted, I mean, it was a low allocation, so it wasn't using water for cooling. So that was kind of one of the questions, like, is that a definitive thing? And it was basically just to have a couple of bathrooms.
Couple of.
Bathrooms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So closed loop cooling, right? I mean, that's what.
I think it was air cooling.
Air cooling.
Yeah. But I mean, if they wouldn't need any, even if it was closed loop, there's still some sort of water
There's probably
intake.
somewhere, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are, again, the benefit of having the township as a utility. Those are questions that we're asking directly, not the County Authority. So we have a lot more direct involvement through the land development process on those kind of questions. And that's,
the heat island question, right? If they're using air cooling, and so.
Yeah, and that's where, like, you have to kind of look through everything, formulate the questions, and then you'll see it's a lot of back and forth. And whether that's where I would love to have the questions ahead of the first planning commission meeting, because I feel like environmental topics are going to be brought up at the planning commission meeting. And I don't want
Them to be surprised.
Yeah, and I don't want to pivot too much to say, that'll be addressed with the EAC. I don't want to put too much pressure on you guys to be the secondary response to everything. I'd rather you guys get your questions in first.
Yeah.
And try to get some responses and then have the follow-up.
I mean,
But-
I'm happy to, if the stuff comes out early, I mean, before the planning commission, I'm happy to write out questions.
I would highly recommend everybody get all of your questions, concerns, everything you want addressed into a very clear format, so that when you have the meeting, again, I might not be here for it. And that's the other concern, that everything can be very easily translated into your final review. You guys did an awesome job with the conditional use application. And so,
Well, you're the one who wrote it though.
but you guys gave me comments that I
Sure.
could take. So I
Yeah.
think that's where, I was very encouraged by that. And that's why I feel better if it is Dave or someone who has to be here if I can't be here, to take that. I know you'll give good comments. And then, because you'll also have to think about addressing other public comments, because public will be here asking comment or asking questions. And so where do you incorporate those into your review?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I will find out more this week. Everything should be good to go. We're gonna put it on the township website earlier. So usually everything goes out for a land development project the Friday before the planning commission meeting. But understanding there's gonna be a lot of interest in reviewing the plans early, we're gonna try to get it up as soon as possible. Still through that same, have it posted to the planning commission meeting. And then that way we can link it out to everybody.
I'm really happy for you that you're going on vacation.
I might not have a job when I get back. And we've been talking about it for
I
a
know.
while now.
I know.
And I've been kind of quietly hinting at hey, if this comes in June, I'm not gonna be here, and this could be a big meeting, but we'll see how it goes.
It's like a double benefit vacation, you know, like.
I think so.
Yes and no. I mean, it's more, and the other thing is, oh no, that's, I was worried. Here's the thing, I will join remotely at the very least. There's no way because I'll be home unless there's an issue with the flight. I was worried I would be like camping in the middle of a national park. Like I had the weeks wrong, but so I will try to be involved in some way or another. But it's the getting information out to you guys a week and a half before I'm not going to be able to do. So that's where all of this other stuff might have to wait a little bit, because as soon as I can kind of get this stuff going, I will reach out. Like I said, we still have to go through the completeness. I mean, we had 3 other land development projects submitted as well. So it's like, there's still, yeah, still a lot to go through. So I will try to get this stuff out for you when it's on the website. I'll send something out and maybe we can I can highlight areas of interest, because again, I haven't even fully looked at what's been submitted fully.
Fine.
All right, should we make a motion to adjourn the meeting? I'll make that motion. Somebody want a second? Okay, great.
All right.
Sarah, thanks. We'll see you next month.
Thanks,